So far in this lesson we have looked at variables and assigning values to a variable. So let's remind ourselves what a variable is. A variable is a location in memory that stores or holds a value or data that can be changed while the program is running. And we've also looked at how we can store inputted values, so values that are coming from the user, into variables. And we've looked at how we should ensure that we use suitable naming conventions when creating our variables so that they make sense as to what's being stored inside them and that they are easily readable within the code and follow the rules. So don't start with numbers, for example, and don't contain any spaces. Okay, so that's what we've learnt so far. However, there is another type of data store which is called a constant. Now, a constant is, we have the definition right here. It is a location in memory that holds a value, but it cannot be changed while the program is running. So that's the difference here. You cannot say a constant is like a variable. No, it's not. That would be like saying a cup is like a mouse. They are two completely different things, and you mustn't compare them in that way. A variable is a place in memory that stores a value that can be changed when the program is running. A constant is a location in memory that stores a value that cannot be changed when the program is running. And it's very, very important that you have that clear definition, even if it means writing it down 5 times, covering it over and learning it. They love to ask you that question in the exam. Okay, so pretty much though, the rest of it is the same. So we have a constant name and we assign that a value, and I'll go into that in a second why that looks like in Python. But before I do, just as with a variable, it's important to make sure that you name it the sensible name that explains what's actually going inside it, like labeling a box with what the box actually contains. Okay. And here we have an example of what it should look like in pseudocode down there. So constant, and in order to differentiate between a variable or a constant in pseudocode or Python code, we use capital letters when we're naming them. And you can see though the assignment is the same, and the value, whatever's going inside, will be of a particular data type. Why do we use constants? Now, constants are important. We want to be able to use a constant. I can change this page, because it helps us to read our readability of our programs. For example, here in this example on the Teach ICT website, which you can have a look at, follow the link that is on your OneNote. We've got a variable called total cost. Okay, so this varies, this can be changed, and it's assigned whatever's stored in a variable price multiplied. I know we haven't looked at that yet, but that star means multiplied by 1.2. Now, in this particular line of code, it's unclear what 1.2 is actually standing for. Why are we timesing the price by 1.2 and then storing that into a variable called total cost? However, if we created a constant called taxed and assigned that constant with 1.2, when we use this line of code here, we can clearly see that what we're actually doing is applying tax to the cost of the item to create the total cost. So when you read the program, you know what's going on here. In addition to that, another benefit is single editing location, which means that if I was constantly, I had lots and lots of products that I need to calculate the tax for, I would have to, if the tax, for example, changed, the tax rate became 1.4, for example, or whatever it might be, I would have to go through all of my code and find every single time that 1.2 had been used and then change that to the new rate. If I use a constant called tax and therefore refer to each time, the value each time using the constant name, I would only need to change it here. I'd reassign constant tax with the new value, and then every single time, like here for example, I do not need to go through every line of my code and change it. And another reason, and the most obvious I would say, is the fact that they can't be changed. And that really does help at times, because if a value is changed accidentally while it's run, like a variable, which can happen, especially as you build up your program and you've got lots and lots of variables, it protects that from being changed. You don't want a program that miscalculates the tax and charges your customer the wrong amount. You don't want to trying to calculate the circumference of or the area of a circle and you've accidentally overwritten the value for pi. Anything that always stays the same throughout the program all the while it's running should be stored in a constant. It's good programming practice, and as we see, it has its advantages. So very, very quickly, and it looks like I've actually closed idle down, so let me just open that up. Have that open. Let's have a little look to see what that looks in code. I will create a constant file, new file over here, and let's call that pi. So I'm going to, in Python, I can't write the word constant first and then pi equals. It won't like this. I've got a space here. I suppose I could do this and call it constant pi, constant something, lots of writing. So in Python, we just use capital letters, pi, and then I would assign that to 3.14. Or if I wanted to do tax, for example, it would be tax. Then I can assign that one key, assign that with 1.2. If, for example, I wanted days of the year, you would use underscores, because otherwise it's going to look messy. So underscores between the separate words of the constant, and then I can assign that. Printing it would be exactly the same. If you wanted a constant to come in from the user, you would just assign it to the input. But by using the capitals, it's very clear in your Python code which locations in memory are constants and which are variables. Okay, so complete the task on constants and then do the final task before moving on to your next lesson.